Hey guys, Ponce here to deliver my final thoughts on Yuumi now that she's going to be available for everyone to play, going to live server and all. I, of course, played her on the PvP for a little bit, so I have something of an opinion on her, which is basically that, just to get right to things, I would personally never play her in solo queue. Not to say I think she's a bad champion or, it's a horrible design idea, or et cetera, et cetera. I actually think the character itself is kind of fun to play, does have some potential. I don't know. I like how it was designed. Unfortunately, it's not the kind of thing I would ever want to play on solo queue just because you have no idea what you're going to get, and she's quite possibly the most team reliant champion I have encountered. Like, you could maybe make some arguments for some other ones. I realize it's a general support thing, but take that whole, oh my god, support is team reliant factor and just amp it up several degrees. And you have Yuumi, which is again not a horrible thing. I realize it is a team game, not everyone can be ideal trillion damage and hard carry every single game. There wouldn't be much variety in the game if it was like that. But the reality is solo queue is just such a clusterfuck a lot of the time. And I don't know, the AD carry that you work with in lane really needs to understand how you function. It's not just a case of you need to know how the character works, and because mechanically I feel like he's pretty simple. I got like the hang of it within like a game or two. It was nothing particularly difficult or anything like that. Not that this game gets particularly mechanically difficult, but it was relatively simple. I got it. I was able to function fine. The difficulty comes in with basically anyone you're working with, especially early on in lane, your AD carry really needs to understand how you want to engage, how you want to fight, simply because she's so weak in the more straightforward contexts. If you just sit there straight up healing and don't do very much, she's not the greatest at that. She's quite bad, especially early on in a straight up brawl. So the AD carry maybe gets a bit more, gets a bit too confident and goes like straight in and realizes, oh wait a minute, Yuumi doesn't actually help me that much in like this short, very decisive engagement. Where she ends up working quite nicely is, and the way I've termed her, is kind of like a skirmisher support. Not to say that that playstyle doesn't exist outside of this character, but I don't know, she's just kind of an extreme version of that, where it's a lot of just slow poking with her Q, kind of sustaining up with the W, especially if the person is low, and then making sure nothing too decisive doesn't happen for a very long time, scaling up to a degree. And then if you somehow over time, over a bunch of short engagements, manage to accrue a lead, then you can go for something decisive. But you need to have like a really, really strong commanding lead in lane. Again, especially early on, if you want to kind of like do something. And how do I want to phrase this? It's very unusual because having a smart AD carry, like someone who is really good at the AD carry role, doesn't inherently mean you're going to work well with them, like someone you can typically, you're accustomed to relying on. They really need to understand how this character works. So it almost kind of feels like a lot of the time, and it's not exclusively, because I have run into instances of very competent AD carries who can play with it right away. But some AD carries who are normally otherwise just kind of like overconfident, just kind of like really go in, and it absolutely does not work out, and then you're just kind of left wondering, well, why did that not work? Well, it's because, I don't know, it almost feels like you have to treat, again, and especially early, I'm really emphasizing the early game, but this continues to an extent later on. The AD carry a lot of the time has to sort of approach the laning phase almost like you're not there. You obviously are, but kind of like, how the character attaches and is a buff. Maybe think of it almost in that sort of way, where it's just like, whatever I'm doing, Yuumi will make it slightly easier, but don't really expect her to do too much decisive in a short amount of time. Just kind of like, I guess, if you're an AD carry, yeah, just imagine she's not there, and if you could accomplish something without her there, go ahead and do it. But if not, maybe think kind of long and hard whether or not you want to do this thing. By and large, you can actually mostly ignore her and let her do her own thing. I actually kind of appreciate, I don't know if this is intentional, but it almost seems a little bit like actually having a cat, where you just sort of leave it alone, let it do its own thing, and if you give it like too much attention and focus too much on the fact that you have a support there and are hyperfixating on doing something with them, it almost tends to backfire a lot of the time. It's just like, you're giving too much attention to the cat, it's going to get pissed off and bite you, or in this case, you're just going to end up dying. So yeah, those are my thoughts on solo queue. Again, I feel like this champion is going to shine a lot more in sort of a slightly more organized play. Obviously, if you're a full 5-man, or at the very least, go in with a duo that you can trust, and again, in this case especially, knows how to play with Yuumi specifically, because he's not bad, but you need to know how to play with it. Perhaps more so than any AD carry, support that I can think of, standard AD or support that I can think of off the top of my head. And again, I realize this is a general support bottom lane dynamic thing, but it's that, but just, again, amped up quite a bit. So, yeah, unfortunately, I feel like she's not going to get played a lot in solo queue, which is, we'll see. You can never really tell those sorts of things. But given just her relative strength at a basic level, I feel like she's probably not going to get played too much. Unless they massively buff her numbers or something. But, that runs the risk of, when their people are organized, it's going to be really, really good. But I think that is by design. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully she sees a bit of play. We'll see. It's possible the player base might figure out this deal with her and start using her properly. You never know. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Like I said, I think she's available now on live. I'm not actually sure. If not now, very soon. So yeah, if you want to play this character, keep that in mind. If you're playing with this character, especially, keep this sort of stuff in mind. I'm not going to talk about builds. That stuff is pretty straightforward. And apparently the game in the background just ended. So yeah, I will see you guys around. Gonna go stream something probably like I usually am. Goodbye.